Yo, to be honest, in 2019, Randy Orton is just living his best life, man. He's playing COD on Twitch and wilding out on there, hanging out with his wife, dropping funny ass tweets every now and then, and casually helping Rey Mysterio become United States champion. Orton has done it all in this business. Multiple time world champion, multiple time Royal Rumble winner, pound for pound #1 shit disturber in his prime. However, it wasn't always like this for Randy. See, in early 2005, Orton was in a weird place. The WWE had tried to make him into what John Cena became, the biggest face in the company. But it just didn't work out. It didn't feel natural. Randy Orton will always be at his best when he's that evil, slimy douchebag shitting in Divas bags. Wait, what? So it's February 05, Orton is no longer world champion. He only had the title for a month and then lost it. And essentially by now, he was just another guy. He went from the guy that was supposed to main event WrestleMania with Triple H to without a match. But honestly, this was a blessing in disguise for Randy Orton. Instead of his match with Triple H, he found himself in a feud that really helped him in the long run. The feud that made him a top heel in the company, and honestly one of the best feuds of all time. The feud that made me a Randy Orton fan. This feud had it all. Car crashes, dead people, possessions, hepatitis. Trust me, it really had it all. Undertaker versus Randy Orton. Let's go back to 2005 and take a look at this iconic feud. On an episode of Raw in February of 2005, Orton was backstage talking to WWE Hall of Famer Billy Graham. So Billy was telling Orton how he was proud of what he had been doing and he did a great job at last year's Mania. But this year he should do something special once again. He should go where no wrestler has gone before. Billy leaves and Orton's like, okay, that's exactly what I was thinking. And then he places a magazine that he was holding on the desk and all you see is Undertaker's face on it. So Undertaker was the legend, he was the dead man, the phenom, and Orton was the up and comer. But even though Taker was the legend, Randy Orton was the legend killer. So now it was time for Randy Orton to kill the biggest legend of them all. But can you really kill what's already dead? So Orton challenges Taker to a match at WrestleMania. He said he was going to be the first man to beat Taker at WrestleMania and that he will end the 12-0 streak. This was cool because this was the first Undertaker WrestleMania build that used a streak as a storyline. See, before this it was kind of mentioned, but it was never a focal point. Where starting from now and until WrestleMania 30, every single storyline was about the streak, and this started it all. So Randy challenged Undertaker and man, people thought he was insane. So Jericho was telling Orton that, you know, this isn't exactly like RKOing the Fabulous Moolah. This is the Undertaker, 12 wins and 0 losses. But Randy would not back down. He really thought he would be the one to end it. Jake the Snake Roberts came back to warn Randy. This is the man who fought the Undertaker at a WrestleMania in 1992. And Randy still wouldn't listen to him. Instead, he just hit the poor old man with an RKO. Call him delusional, call him insane, but he really believed he could do it. So then on an episode of SmackDown, it was time for the contract signing. Randy's in the ring, the Undertaker's in the ring, and Orton just grabs the mic and says, I have nothing but respect for you and your legacy. You're 12-0 at WrestleMania, but look into my eyes when I say this. Soon you'll be 12-1. And Undertaker just looked at him like Orton's on crack or something. Orton signs the contract and pushes the papers over to Taker. Taker signs it, but then Randy slaps the dead man. And at this exact moment, Randy knew he was screwed. So Undertaker just got slapped. He's smiling and then goes full dead man mode. The lights go out, weird noises start to play, Orton is shook and just runs out of the ring. Randy's at the stage, he can't believe what he just did, and the Undertaker simply just puts his hands in the air and lightning strikes the stage, and Orton legit probably shot his pants. But it was on. The legend versus the legend killer. So Randy knew it was time for beef and Randy knew it was going to be a war. So to make sure nothing distracted him in his preparation for his match with Taker at WrestleMania, he brought out his on-screen girlfriend Stacy Keibler. So they're standing in the middle of the ring and this man really wants to show the world how dedicated he is for this match. So Randy kisses her and then just RKOs her in the middle of the ring. Randy Orton, the Thought Killer. No Nut March was in full effect and nothing was going to distract him. So then we got weeks of mind games from Taker and weeks of Orton trying to figure out how to RKO the dead man. But then it was finally time. WrestleMania 21, The Undertaker versus Randy Orton. And these two went out and put on a show. No matter what Undertaker tried, Orton somehow, some way, always had a counter for everything that he did. So Undertaker hit Randy with the last ride, and the ref was down. So in came Randy Orton's dad. So Randy's dad hits Undertaker with his cast and absolutely destroys him. He then takes his son and puts him on top of Undertaker for the cover, but Taker kicks out. And then poor Bob Orton was about to get clapped. So Undertaker gets up and kicks his dad out of the ring. He then grabs Orton and goes for the choke slam, but then in the middle of the move, out of nowhere, RKO. The choke slam into the RKO is one of the best reversals I have ever seen. The timing was so perfect and it was so smooth. Orton goes for the cover, 1, 2, but no, Taker kicks out. Randy then wanted to end the match with the utmost disrespect that he could think of. He wanted to use Undertaker's finisher on him to end his streak. So Orton grabs him, goes for the tombstone, but then the Undertaker reverses it into his own tombstone and he drives Orton's head into the ground. 1, 2, 3, Undertaker beat Orton. What a match, and Orton tried everything. He did everything he possibly could to beat The Undertaker, even had his dad come in and help, but it wasn't enough. The Undertaker was just too good, and the legend killer couldn't kill the legend. So The Undertaker went back to SmackDown to be all dead and shit, and Randy Orton was injured, but he still went back to Raw. And it had seemed as if the beef was over. So 2 months later, on a random episode of SmackDown, it's Undertaker versus JBL for the #1 contendership for the world title. So Undertaker was putting in that work against JBL and he had him up for the tombstone and he was about to win. And then guess who came out of nowhere? Randy Orton, and bang, an RKO. He looks at the camera, grins, and gets the hell out of the ring. This man RKO'd his girlfriend because of you. You really think that he's gonna just forget about losing at WrestleMania, Undertaker? So JBL beats Taker, all thanks to Randy Orton. And Randy Orton is standing on the stage, grabs the mic. Undertaker, you have just been RKO'd, and you better get used to it, because the legend killer is officially on SmackDown. It was on once again. So Orton came out next week looking cockier than ever. Seeing the first one with The Undertaker, he was confident, but now it was different. Now it was turned up to a 10, cause now he had officially got the drop on the Taker. So he comes out talking that shit. But yo, everyone is cocky until the lights go out and Taker's mind games start happening. So the lights went out and Orton had that look on his face again. The lights are out, smoke fills the arena, and once the lights turn on, the dead man is right behind Randy Orton. So Orton turns it around and he's frozen. Undertaker does a pump fake and Orton just flies out of the ring. As Prodigy once said, ain't no such thing as halfway crooks. They shook, and Orton was definitely shook. But Orton still wanted a match against The Undertaker, and this time he said he would guarantee a win. So SummerSlam 2005, round 2, Orton versus Taker. So this match was very different than the Mania match. It was much slower and it was much more methodical, and Orton was much more careful. So at the end of the match, Orton got hit with a chokeslam from Undertaker, but then a fan ran into the ring and started wilding out. Security ran to the ring, the fans trying to get the Undertaker's attention, throwing his hands in Taker's face, and Taker just shoves the fan down in the corner. Taker turns around, is slowly picking up Randy Orton, but then out of nowhere, RKO. 1, 2, 3. Randy Orton beat The Undertaker. Was it a fluke? Was it lucky? Whatever the hell it was a win. Orton found a way and he beat the dead man. So Orton runs out of the ring and he goes to the fan and he's telling security, he's with me, he's with me. So it turned out that it wasn't a fan and Orton's hugging the guy in the white suit. Orton slowly takes off his glasses and then the mask to reveal that it was none other than Randy Orton's dad, Cowboy Bob Orton. Father and son found a way to beat the dead man. The Undertaker had just been bamboozled, and Taker got outsmarted by Randy Orton. At this point, Orton went full douchebag times 100 mode. He finally gotten his win, and now he was going to stunt like no one else. On one episode of SmackDown, he even tried giving The Undertaker a retirement gift. He said, "Yo, I beat you. What's the point of you even wrestling anymore? Just retire." So him and his dad brought him a huge check for his retirement fund. Guess how much was on that check? $1,400. What an asshole. Eventually though, they had a match again on SmackDown, and it was an amazing match, honestly better than their SummerSlam match. Taker won the match, but the main takeaway was, during the match, a truck came out and a casket was placed on the entrance stage. So during the match, Taker was going to put Orton in the casket. He opened the casket and inside was an Undertaker mannequin. And Undertaker looked like he had just seen a ghost. There have been very few times in WWE history where The Undertaker has looked like that. See, just getting that reaction from Taker was enough for Randy. So even though Randy lost the match technically, he believed that he beat The Undertaker mentally. So the next week on SmackDown, father and son had a casket in the ring, and they said it was Undertaker's funeral. They open it up and the mannequin Taker is in the casket again. And Orton says, "Undertaker, I beat you mentally." Orton is going on and on how he beat Taker and how he's the greatest of all time, but the camera zooms in on the mannequin, and it turns out it's not a mannequin, it's the real Undertaker. He opens his eyes and the crowd goes insane. But Orton has no clue what's going on, and Undertaker closes his eyes once again to pretend he's the mannequin. So Orton has done his promo, he's looking at the dummy, but then he notices something is up. Didn't look right. It kind of looked a little too realistic. But then out of nowhere, Taker grabs him by the throat and unleashes hell. He gets out of the casket and then throws Orton into the casket. Man, Randy really wanted to play mind games with The Undertaker. So then next week on SmackDown, Orton is in the ring. He had just lost the match. The lights go out and the Undertaker's druids bring out a large casket. Father and son are shook. The druids open the casket, and in the casket are Orton and his dad, foreshadowing Randy and his dad's future. Yo, you gotta love the editing, because it was obvious that it really was Randy and Bob edited in post-production, but you know, it was cool nonetheless. But yeah, the mind games were getting crazy, and it all led to The Undertaker versus the Ortons in a casket match at No Mercy, 2-on-1. So to win a casket match, you simply put your opponent into the casket and lock it. So Undertaker had to put father and son both in the casket and lock it. But the fact that Undertaker had to fight two men was just too much. Undertaker tried his best, but it wasn't enough. Orton and his dad threw Taker into the casket and won the match. But the victory for Randy was nothing. Randy wanted to do more. So Randy and his dad pulled the casket up to the entrance ramp. Bob went to the back and got an axe. So Randy was given the axe and used it to just hit the casket over and over again, just cutting up the top of the casket. And then his dad brought out a gasoline canister. Randy poured gasoline on top of the casket and especially onto the hole where there were cutouts from the axe. Randy then got a lighter, started a fire, and threw it onto the casket. And the casket was lit on fire. The fire burned, the crowd was booing, the fire just got larger and larger, there was smoke everywhere, and Randy Orton was just staring at what he had done. Randy really wanted to kill the dead man, what a visual. This was something that was done back in 98 with Kane, and it was done again here, but it was still lit. Randy had finally did what he wanted to do since February. He wanted to kill the legend. He wanted to kill The Undertaker, and he did it. Rest in peace to The Undertaker. Orton now was living his best life. He finally got rid of The Undertaker. He could finally put it behind him and now focus on bigger and better things. I really hope he called back Stacy and apologized. So Orton then moved on and was on Team SmackDown. It had been over a month and there was no sign of The Undertaker. Randy Orton was now focused on the world title and Team SmackDown. So for Survivor Series 2005, it was Team SmackDown versus Team Raw, the first ever SmackDown versus Raw match. And Orton was the last man in the match for SmackDown and came clutch once again and won the match for SmackDown. I have a video on the show, so this part is taken from that video. But this is what happened after the match. So they're celebrating with Randy, they're hoisting him on his shoulders. Randy did it. Randy clutch Orton held it down once again. SmackDown won and it was all good in the hood. But then you hear this. And man, when I tell you Randy Orton looked shook, he looked shook. I have never seen a human being look so shook before in my life. Look at his face, he's begging the SmackDown roster to let him down, and then Undertaker's demons or whatever place a casket on the entrance stage, and they just left. Orton is tripping, but no way, it can't be the Undertaker. The Undertaker was dead, so it can't be him on the stage, right? He can't come back. Oh man, trying to explain this storyline is why I love wrestling. Only wrestling would have a story like this. But then Undertaker's music started up. The arena went black and a lightning bolt hit the casket, which was on fire, just like how Orton set the casket on fire at No Mercy. Undertaker kicks down the casket and walks out looking like the biggest badass ever, straight from a horror movie. Orton is contemplating suicide at this point, he can't believe what he's seeing, and Undertaker is walking to the ring with a purpose. Undertaker went into the ring with punches, kicks, and choke slams for all the jobbers on the SmackDown roster. Orton ran for his life, and Undertaker cleaned out the ring. So Orton is on the ramp, and Taker's in the ring, and Taker did his good old-fashioned throat slash. The dead had risen once again. Now that's how you end a pay-per-view. So Undertaker was alive and well, or I guess dead and well, but Undertaker was there and he wanted vengeance. He wanted revenge on Randy Orton, and Randy Orton knew that he was screwed. He needed to do something quick, and he needed to do something fast, and he needed to do something big. But what's bigger than putting a man in a casket and setting it on fire? So what does he do? On the next episode of SmackDown, he sneaks behind the Undertaker, beats him up, throws him on top of the trunk of a lowrider, and he reverses it into the SmackDown stage, causing explosions everywhere. He gets out of there, he's running out, he's tumbling everywhere, the stage is destroyed, and there's fireworks, there's explosions everywhere. Orton thought that he had killed the Undertaker for good this time. I mean, the explosion looked like how it looks in GTA when the gas station explodes. There was fire everywhere, it was blowing up. There was no way the Undertaker could survive that, right? But like I said, can you really kill someone who was already dead? So Orton thinks he finally did it, it's done, and Orton's in the ring on the next episode of SmackDown gloating and relieved, but once again, the lights go out. So now the man who Orton thought he killed was still not dead. Casket on fire wasn't enough, car crash wasn't enough, and now the mind games were turned up to 100. Every little sign of Undertaker had Orton tripping like he was on acid. Orton was in the middle of the ring and the lights go off and Taker's voice can be heard, and all he says is, "I'm the one who does the killing." Undertaker was simply not going to die. Randy's running around trying to escape, but wherever he goes, something happens and he ends up back in the ring. He cannot escape it. It was finally going to be time for Randy Orton to die. No matter where Randy went, there was always something there relating to the Undertaker. Randy was in the washroom washing his face. He looks up and who's in the mirror? The Undertaker. He was walking around backstage with his dad, and who's on the TV screen watching him? The Undertaker. After all the things Orton tried, it wasn't enough. He couldn't escape it, and the end was near. Undertaker was even possessing people around Orton. Never forget when Josh Matthews got possessed by the Undertaker.
Enjoying the ride, Randy?
All the mind games finally led to Randy Orton to see a shrink. See, Randy thought it was all in his head. There's no way the Undertaker has all these supernatural abilities, and even if he did, he killed the Undertaker. Randy was hearing voices way before his theme song changed, but the shrink couldn't do anything about it. After months of surviving, after months of mind games, it finally caught up to Randy Orton. The end was near, and in the final pay-per-view of 2005, it was time for one last match. Hell in a Cell, Randy Orton versus The Undertaker. What a storyline, built for almost an entire year, and now here we were. It was time for the climax, it was time for the finale, it was time for one person to die. It was a SmackDown before Armageddon, and Randy Orton just admitted defeat. He said he couldn't do it. Straight SpongeBob, I can't do it, Mr. Krabs vibes. He comes out looking stressed, he's scared, his hair's all grown out, and he admits it. He says he cannot kill The Undertaker, and he says that nobody can kill the legend of The Undertaker. And he says he's going out on top. He says he's retiring. Yes, Randy Orton, at 25 years old, was about to retire so he couldn't get clapped by The Undertaker. Randy gets out of the ring and he's leaving. He's on the entrance stage, and as he's leaving, the Undertaker theme begins to play. Smoke fills the arena and Taker's Druids come out. Once Orton sees the Druids, he's like, ah shit, here we go again. He runs back into the ring, and then out comes The Undertaker. His first appearance since being blown up. Taker's inside, he takes off his hat and his coat. Orton is just begging him, please, I don't want any problems, please don't hurt me, please don't kill me. Randy, what do you think this man's gonna do after you tried to kill him twice? Of course he's going to hurt you. But The Undertaker looks on the stage and one of his druids is still there. All the other ones left, but one is still there. The druid pulls out the Undertaker's urn, takes off his hood, and is Bob Orton. Orton then attacks Undertaker when he's not looking and just wilds out. For 5 minutes, he absolutely destroys The Undertaker. Chair shots to the head, chair shots to the back. He destroys him. There were legit dents in the chair. Taker is busted wide open. Taker tries sitting up, but Orton doesn't stop. He even uses the urn as a weapon. Taker is busted wide open. Orton just went full savage mode. Undertaker's laying on the floor. Randy grabs him by the hair. Undertaker's busted wide open. There's blood everywhere. And he just says, I'll see you Sunday at Armageddon. So if Orton was going to hell, he wasn't going without a fight. So after almost a year, it was time. Legend versus legend killer, Hell in a Cell. All the antics were done, all the mind games, all the talking, all the scaring. Who was going to win? It was time for the finale. And ladies and gentlemen, that's how you build a storyline. So the Hell in a Cell was lowered and Orton came out looking like he was ready to die. Taker spent 30 minutes making his entrance, but everyone loved it. And yo, you just know shit's about to go down when Taker slams that cell door. This was the perfect match to end this legendary feud. Orton and The Undertaker went at it for 30 minutes. It was brutal, it was violent, but it all made sense. This was a feud in which the Hell in a Cell was necessary, and they put on a show. This match was everything that it needed to be. The crowd was loud, the commentary was great, and these two men killed each other. Orton was bleeding like 10 minutes in, the chair shots were violent, Undertaker was destroying Orton for a good 10 minutes, and Orton showed no signs of life, but then out of nowhere an RKO while Taker was on the apron, and Orton was finally back into the match. Orton was choking out Taker with a steel chain. Eventually Taker started bleeding. There was a lot of blood, man. There was blood stains on the ring post. It was violent. At one point Undertaker did a choke slam to Orton and it looked like it was over, but somehow Orton got his foot on the bottom rope. Orton even was able to place the Undertaker on a table and did a flying splash through the table from the top rope. Like I said, they were just destroying each other. It was physical and it was violent. So this is where the turning point happened. So Undertaker accidentally hit the referee and Undertaker's chokeslam gets reversed into the RKO. So both men are down, the referee is down and is bleeding. So the outside referee comes in to check on him, but he leaves the door open and as a result, Cowboy Bob Orton walks in. But Undertaker doesn't care. He hits Orton with one of the most vicious last rides I've ever seen. So another referee comes in and the referee's counting 1, 2, but of course Cowboy Bob Orton pulls out the referee. And once Undertaker notices that his dad was involved once again, he went outside and proceeded to beat the shit out of Bob Orton. So remember how in the beginning of this video I said this feud had it all, including hepatitis? Yeah, and now The Undertaker was beating up Cowboy Bob Orton and Cowboy was bleeding. And it turned out that Randy Orton's dad had hepatitis and he was bleeding everywhere. So Undertaker didn't know about this back then, so he's just casually beating up a bloody Bob Orton. But this was wild, man. If you have hepatitis, you should not be bleeding. You should not be in a wrestling ring. Undertaker was bleeding, Randy was bleeding, and so was his dad. So a lot of blood could have been mixed, and that's how you spread hepatitis. Luckily for Taker, there was no direct contact of their blood. Undertaker never headbutted him, they only punched him, but what the So Undertaker destroys Bob Orton, he goes back into the ring and it's time to finish the job against Randy Orton. So Taker goes for the tombstone, but remember how Taker countered Orton's tombstone at WrestleMania? Well, now finally Orton reversed Taker's tombstone into his own. He does a tombstone onto Taker. So Orton's dad is dead, the referee's dead, the Undertaker's dead as usual, and Orton is just chilling because he finally did it. He slowly goes for the pin and another referee comes in. 1, 2, and Undertaker didn't just kick out, he sat up, and he sat up like he was about to kill Randy Orton, and that's exactly what he was about to do. But Orton couldn't believe it, so he started punching him down, but Taker got up again. Orton punches him like 30 times, but Taker still grabs him by the throat and gets up. Undertaker is about to chokeslam Randy straight to hell, but then his dad comes in for one final attempt to save his baby boy. But Undertaker just kicks him again. Taker turns around and boom, Randy for the RKO, but reversed. Not this time. Randy goes flying and then finally grabs Randy, hits him with the tombstone. 1, 2, 3. Finally, it's done. Taker finally, for good, finished off Randy Orton. What a match and what a feud. Almost 1 year of amazing storytelling. This was just special. From WrestleMania to the mind games on SmackDown to caskets on fire to a Hell in a Cell, it was just special. Undertaker climbs up the cell, Randy's leaving, and we get one of the greatest wrestling photos of all time. This feud was just amazing. This made me a Randy fan. To this day, 2005 Orton is one of my favorite characters ever, and this feud elevated Orton to another level. This is what made Orton, not the feud with Triple H in 04. They tried with that, but what really worked was this. Without this feud, Orton probably still would have been a star or a top heel. He was destined for greatness regardless. But man, this feud made everyone respect Orton. He held his own with the Taker for almost a year. In the ring, outside of it, and they just had great chemistry. This feud also helped The Undertaker too. After his return to being the dead man in 2004, he had never had that feud, he never had that rivalry, he never had that fire storyline, and this was it. This is what brought back The Undertaker. This is what made The Undertaker again, the dead man. And the best part is that they didn't even need the world championship. It was a year-long feud that never got stale, never got boring, and everything made sense, and the finale was what everyone wanted. It was perfect. This is almost a perfect storyline. Orton tried everything, but it was never enough. The dead man prevailed.